a special episode tonight. It's our first time live, so bear with us as we get through this. I'm Mike Hawkins, and I'm along with Chief Scott Hughes, and we have a very special guest today, and it's a somber day. And I'm going to turn it over to Scott to introduce our guest and tell us why we're here today.
Well, thanks, Mike. Joining us today is the president of the Ohio FOP, Jay McDonald. Jay's got over 30 years law enforcement experience. He's been on the FOP board since 1999. He's extremely active in advocating for law enforcement. He's doing a initiative right now called Protect Ohio Police that maybe we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But before we were getting ready to go live, we just got word that one of the three officers who was ambushed up in Lorain, Ohio, Philip Wagner, passed away. Literally, that we just found that out within the last just few minutes. So it's kind of taken us all here a little bit by surprise. We weren't really ready for that. So, Officer Wagner was 35 years old. Based on the media reports, he served his country, the United States Marine Corps. Started out with the Sheffield Village Police Department for about 5 years. And then for the last 3 years or so, he served with Lorain. So, Jay, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. You were up in Lorain yesterday. You were on scene there. What'd you see? What'd you feel? What's going on up there right now? This is awful.
Well, I'm based in Marion, Ohio, which is about an hour and 45 minutes southeast of Lorain. For your viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with where Lorain, Ohio is, it's in the next county to the west of Cuyahoga or Cleveland. It's about 25 minutes from the city of Lorain to the city of Cleveland. I got word of the shooting and jumped in my car and sped to the hospital, Cleveland Metro Health Hospital, where the officers had been life flighted. And I spent a few hours in there with their team as they were coming to grips with what happened. And for your viewers, the reports are that two officers were sitting side by side in their cruisers, sharing a pizza for lunch. They were on a dead-end street in an unimproved industrial park. So no buildings, just roads. Something that the city of Lorain will hope to bring jobs and development and revenue into the city of Lorain. And from what the Lorain officers tell me is you had to go looking for these officers to be back there. You couldn't see them unless you went in search of them based on where they were parked and where they were positioned. And they were sharing a pizza. They thought they were in a safe place, probably have done this a lot of times. We all work in places where we know where we can go and park and be a little to catch up on reports or to grab a bite to eat. And these two officers were sitting there when they were attacked by a cop armed with a high-powered rifle, with multiple weapons, with enough ammo to wage war. And the Bureau of Criminal Investigation in the state of Ohio said that the suspect fired a substantial amount of rounds. I don't know that they know the exact amount, but by the amount of spent casings, they determined he fired a substantial amount of rounds. And both officers were shot as they sat in their car. A third officer who responded to the call for help was also shot multiple times as he came to the aid of his brothers in the city of Lorain. And Officer Wagner and Officer Gale, the original two officers, and then Officer Payne was the third responding officer. And Officer Gale was shot in the hand and will need surgeries, but is expected to survive his wounds. Officer Payne has had multiple surgeries already, and he's also expected to survive his wounds. And then we have to think about all the colleagues. As I was in the hospital, seeing the responding officers from Lorain and other agencies still covered in blood, in shock of what happened. And when I offered to buy them new clothes and try to get them out of there, their uniforms that were covered in blood. I was met by officers who were still obviously in shock and unwilling to leave the hospital, even to get new clothes, as they stood vigil for their wounded brothers. It's something that you'll never forget. I've unfortunately had the opportunity to stand that vigil in too many hospital rooms, and each one of them will be a lifelong memory that that you couldn't shake even if you wanted to.
Jay, it seems to me that in some ways we are normalizing violence against the police. We've got some preliminary data that suggests ambush shootings are up 36 ambush style attacks, 45 officers shot, 8 fatalities. That's from January of this year to June this year. Again, these are preliminary numbers. 166 officers shot nationwide, 21 officers killed, now 22. As the FOP president and as someone who has, spent 30 plus years, in this field and researching and standing up for officers, what's the root cause of this aggression of law enforcement, in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, we have multiple causes. And there's the breakdown of society's norms, where we have elected leaders who do not push back on violence against the police. The month of May was extremely violent towards the police in Ohio. And down around where you live, Scott, we had a deputy sheriff who was assassinated while he's directing traffic at a college graduation. And right after that happened, the city of Akron had a city council meeting where public comment included, and we're talking hundreds of miles away, people saying, what happened to Deputy Henderson? Maybe that should happen here in Akron too, because we're sick of the cops. And the mayor and the council sat silent. Didn't push back. Didn't say this is ridiculous. What are you talking about? That's the kind of thing that our men and women in law enforcement have to put up with. So it's not just in Lorain. We had officers killed in the month of May in Hamilton County and in Morrow County. Urban center, rural, very rural, small town, Ohio. And the common denominator is a lack of respect for authority. It really is a stain on our society that we've allowed this to go on to the point where this is an everyday happening. In fact, I'm getting reports today that the Lorain County prosecutor and a defense attorney asked a judge for a continuance out of respect for the officers who were going through this traumatic event. And the judge said, cops get killed in America every day. It's not an excuse to cancel court.
Unbelievable. Are you serious? Unreal.
Yeah. And I'll have more to say about that once I get the transcripts. But I had multiple
Jay,
officers in Lorain County, tell me that story today.
Jay, and Scott and I talked about it offline about the increase in violence that I've seen in outside of Ohio, but in Ohio, it's been really amazing to see the amount of violence against police officers. But when do you think this political rhetoric or the media, when did you see this turn, and what can we do to change this?
Well, I've been around long enough, that I've been working since Ferguson, and before. But I think Ferguson was the start. And I think the narrative that came out that was quickly adopted, and what we found out was that narrative was all based on lies. The President Obama's DOJ came out and said none of that happened. The hands up, don't shoot didn't happen. The I'm standing there and was attacked by the police for no reason didn't happen. All of those things. The trouble is that it takes so long for the truth to come out that narrative. If you asked 100 people on the street, a good chunk of them would say that they still believe that to be true, even though it's proven to be false. And it has grown from there. I was on the ground in Baltimore when they had riots after the young man died in the back of the wagon. To Freddie Gray was his name. To the riots that came after George Floyd. And I think that there is a segment of society that believes that the police are the cause of all the world's problems, and that and that violence against them is not only tolerated, but in some cases condoned. And we've seen that rise. And I don't believe that is universally accepted, but it is accepted enough that we get stories like we heard coming out of the Lorain Common Police Court today, that we get stories like came out of the Akron City Council meeting, and that we get, when Deputy Henderson was murdered, hundreds of thousands of dollars were raised on GoFundMe to benefit his killer. And not just GoFundMe, but Give, Send, Go, another online platform. And we were able to shut down GoFundMe's attempts, but not Give, Send, Go. And that would have been unheard of at the start of my career, right? Would have been unheard of for politicians and elected leaders, even in the civil rights community, to say the things that are being said now and that are not immediately pushed back upon. And it's due to a divided country politically, a divided country socially, a divided country that we have to heal and fix. And I believe it's getting there slowly, too slowly for my liking, too slowly for the men and women who continue to work the streets. It's really a stain on our society that this kind of rhetoric continues to happen.
I felt like we really struggled 2020 through like 2024 with respect to recruiting and retention. And I felt like the beginning of this year, you started to see a shift, maybe towards the end of 24. I just felt like you started to see a shift, and the academies were filling up, and we were hiring folks. And I felt like, especially the lateral entries, I feel like it's slowed down. As I've traveled the state and traveled the country teaching and speaking, I'm hearing the same thing. Like, it seems like, officers were jumping around departments to departments, trying to find one that had good leadership, good morale, good equipment, all that kind of stuff. Folks are kind of settled in. And here we are now. You've got two police officers who are sitting doored up, as we like to say, sharing lunch when they're attacked by a coward with a high-powered rifle for presumably just wearing the uniform, right? The investigation will come out. We'll find out if there's any backstory there. But irregardless, who in the hell is going to want to do this job if you're just – we got Deputy Henderson, and now we got these two guys targeted for just wearing a uniform. Society cannot continue like this. It is not possible to move on with this rhetoric and in so much hate. And here's three chiefs on this podcast, and I'm trying to think of a question to ask you, Jay, and what comes to mind is like, how do we as police chiefs go to work tomorrow and go out there and get them, boys? Right? Go out there and get them, guys. Go out there and get them, ladies. Like, we got your back. And look, all of our staff can know we got their back, but they're watching the same news reports. They're reading the same stuff on social media. This is draining, right? Across the board. Absolutely draining across the board.
Yeah. And there's nothing that we're going to be able to say to fix that. But here's the flip side of that coin. The men and women of the Lorain PD came to work today, and they continued to serve. They continue to watch out for each other. They continue to answer their calling. And think about the men and women who responded to the plea for help from their brothers who lay bleeding in police cars, who knew that there was a psychopath with a high-powered rifle, and they responded anyway. They're heroes. They're flat-out heroes. And there's no other word that fits other than they are heroes. And the same would take place in your department and mine, because the men and women that work with me, I'm sure, are the same as the men and women who work with each of you. They will continue to show up. The issue is how do we bring others in to work alongside of them when we have openings? And we can, talking about the money's not going to do it, right? Talking about, we have good health care isn't going to do it. I think the only thing that we have to sell is that you have a chance to make a difference alongside heroes, and work every day alongside heroes is how we can help bring back the staffing of our agencies. And if you want to know about, is that rhetoric or is that real, you can look to Lorain. You can look to the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office or the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, where those heroes showed up to work even after one of their own was targeted, was assassinated, which is the case in all three of these instances, and is a case across the country. I think that's real.
So Jay, talking about that and the heroes that are responding and going to the call, coming the next day, does the FOP offer any resources or tools to support these officers in the field?
Yeah, and we have, we were involved in officer wellness before it was called officer wellness, right? My mentor was a guy named Steve Young, who was the Ohio FOP president, and became the national president in 2001, and was the national president who presided over the memorial service immediately after 9/11, and was the president during 9/11. And in Ohio, he started a peer response service. We call it the Critical Incident Response Service. And all of our members know that they can call 1-800-FOP-OLCI any time of the day. And what you get asked are, do you need a lawyer? Do you need peer response? And we've been doing that and teaching that for decades. So we offer those services, and our peer responders have been in Lorain, will continue to be in Lorain, and we provide those services on top of the other union type stuff that we do, where we provide assistance. But right now it's the Ohio FOP Foundation that's raising the money that'll give the money out to supplement the Lorain Foundation and the good work they do. And it's I got people there today in the local FOP hall, just sitting, putting food out, and they're just there to talk to whoever needs someone to talk to them. It's those kinds of things, that kind of support of the local law enforcement is the reason why the FOP has existed since 1950, right? Is that we have the back of cops in the state of Ohio, and I think people know that even where they're not FOP members, right? I think they know that the FOP is the leading police organization in this state, and carries the biggest stick in the legislature, carries the biggest stick in the wellness arena, carries the biggest stick in support of our membership. And it's times like this that that people know that this is what I pay my dues for, and this is why I belong, I might not be there the second Tuesday of every month. I might not be there, you know, at this event or that event. But I know when the chips are down that you'll have my back, whether that's my union, whether that's a lawyer, whether that's wellness, whether that's support in our darkest days. And I think that's the job of the FOP, and I think we do it pretty well here in Ohio. And the lessons we learned from this one will be used, unfortunately, not in the not too distant future when we have the next one.
Jay, talk about the Protect Ohio initiative, the Protect Ohio Police initiative that you're working on, please.
Yeah. So after murders of Deputy Henderson and Deputy Shear, quite frankly, our membership was pissed off, and they were sick of thoughts and prayers, right? They wanted action, and they were demanding action be taken. And so what we came up with was the Protect Ohio Police Initiative. And what we're saying with this is there are things you can do today to make cops safer. Judges can use the tools they have today to set appropriate bond. Prosecutors today can not cut deals that put violent criminals back on our streets. Our elected leaders today can stand with cops, and we expect them to. But we're also looking for more. We're looking to pass the Protect and Serve Act in Congress that would provide a federal penalty for those people who bring violence to the police. And in Ohio, we have a good chunk of our legislators who have signed on in support of that bill. But we also have a big chunk who haven't. And they span the political spectrum from the left all the way to the right, from Joyce Beatty, the congresswoman in Columbus, to Jim Jordan, and everywhere in between on that political spectrum. And we have people who say they support the cops, and just saying it isn't good enough anymore. You have to put your name on the bill. In Ohio, we have the Larry Henderson Act, which says that if you kill a cop, there's only 2 penalties that will be available: the death penalty or life without parole, introduced by 2 members of the Ohio General Assembly who were law enforcement officers, and Cindy Abrams, who was a Cincinnati cop, and Phil Plummer, who was the sheriff of Montgomery County, which is where Dayton is. We demand that they pass this bill, and we demand that the governor sign it. I will tell you that I've got my phone ringing from the governor to our congressional folks, to our state legislators, saying, my heart is broken, and I believe them. I believe that's true. I believe that they're praying. But our members need more than that, right? And so those elected leaders, whether they be local judges, prosecutors, mayors, city council people, whether they be in the Ohio General Assembly or members of the United States Congress, if you do not do what is in the best interest of cops to make our life safer, and you do not stand with the police, then I'm going to recruit somebody to run against you. And we're all in with both feet. And so we have opportunities to do the right thing. We are keeping track whether you do the right thing. And if you don't, I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're an independent, a libertarian, a socialist, Green Party. I don't care. Our members don't care. We will run somebody against you.
Well, we started off with, this, just all this rhetoric and all this drama in the world. And this, this is not sustainable. For the life of me, I don't understand how anybody, I don't care, to your point, left or right, that doesn't matter. How do you not support a bill that says if you kill a cop, you're either going to prison for your life or you're getting the death penalty? Like, I don't understand what about that is hard. If you're convicted by a jury of your own peers, to me, that's just mind numbing. I don't, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I appreciate what you're doing. There are it seems like when the soundbite fits to say law and order, or when the soundbite fits to say I support the police, then you hear it. But to your point, sir, put the pen to the paper and let's move on across the board. It has nothing to do with politics. So kudos.
Scott, we call that the conspiracy of smiles, right? The people who will show up and smack your back and say, I'm with you. And they want their picture taken at our funerals. And they want to show up at social events. But then forget all that when they show up to the General Assembly, the City Council, or the Congress, and don't do the right thing by cops. We have been calling that the conspiracy of smiles. Well, what the Protect Ohio Police initiative is all about is we're no longer accepting the conspiracy of smiles. And your folks, your listeners who are out there can go to protectohiopolice.com and sign up to get updates to learn how they can help. They can learn who we believe is not living up to standing with cops, and they can even nominate politicians locally at the state level or at the federal level. They can tell us that their local judge, their local mayor, or their congressman isn't doing what they're supposed to do, and we are establishing a hall of shame,
and that make
sure everybody knows.
Sorry,
who these people are.
Yeah, sorry, Jay. And that FOP endorsement means a lot. So, wow, good for you. Say that website one more time, Jay.
protectohiopolice.com.
Okay, we'll make sure.
And then there's a tab in there where you can get updates, and there's a tab in there where you can send us information.
Jay, listen, we're coming up on 30 minutes, and I know your time's valuable. And we said at the start of this that we had just found out that Officer Wagner passed away from his injuries yesterday. So I'm sure you have a lot that you need to get going and getting done. I appreciate taking a few minutes. Any closing thoughts? Anything that you want to say to the listeners before we let you go on this somber day?
Yeah, so I really have three things, right? The first one is that I'm asking all of your followers to press their elected leaders to pass the Protect and Serve Act, and if you're in Ohio, to pass the Larry Henderson Act. The second thing is we need to remember that the men and women of law enforcement are truly the best of the best. They have a job that is unparalleled, where we often place them in unwinnable situations. We ask them to run towards fire to protect people they've never met, and we put them in harm's way on our behalf. And oftentimes they are heroes. And we witness their heroism in Lorain, and we witness it every day in cities and towns and counties and villages across this country. And we need to remember that, and we need to express that in gratitude to the men and women who are willing to wear this badge and to bear this burden that the communities place upon. And lastly, if you pray, I'm asking you to pray hard. Pray hard for the men and women of the Lorain Police Department and the men and women of law enforcement all across the country, because they need your help. They need to know that the general public is praying for them, does support them, and they have their back. Big city, small town, everywhere. If we can do those three things, we will make life better for the cops on the street who are doing the important work. There's three chiefs of police sitting here. I don't really tell all my union buddies that I'm a chief, but I have been for coming up on 5 years. And our job is not the most important job in the police department. Quite frankly, the most important job in the police department are the men and women who are pushing cruisers, responding to 911 calls, who are making split-second decisions that keep people safe. And they do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. And making their life safer, making their life a little bit better is what a chief's job is. And if we can do those three things, I think we'll make their lives a little bit safer and a little bit better. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk to both of you tonight and your listeners.
Jay, I can't thank you enough. Normally we have a closing, right? Somebody takes it home and closes it, but I really, truly don't believe after those three things you've mentioned and how eloquently you put those for law enforcement officers, we could close that any better. So on behalf of Scott and myself, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the time tonight, what you've done for law enforcement officers, especially in Ohio, and what's going on today. So we appreciate you here.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And Scott, I'll see you soon. And nice to meet you, Mike. And if there's anything I can ever do for either one of you, just let me know.
All righty.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you much.
Thanks.